Ever feel like AI is this kind of mysterious thing making decisions about your life?
It can definitely feel that way, right?
Like, how do these algorithms actually work? Well, today we're diving into the world of explainable AI, or XAI for short.
Trying to take the black box out of AI.
Exactly. And we're tackling a study from Carnegie Mellon and USC that really makes you think. It's called Regulating Explainable AI, XAI, may harm consumers,
Yeah, it's a fascinating paper. Challenges the assumption that more AI transparency is always a good thing.
which instinctively sounds kind of strange, right?
Right.
So before we get deep into this study, for anyone who hasn't been knee-deep in algorithms today, what are we even talking about when we say explainable AI?
Okay, so imagine Facebook shows you an ad for, let's say, noise-canceling headphones.
Happens to the best of us.
And Facebook's like, this is based on your interests. XAI is about going deeper than that, explaining why those interests make you the perfect target for those headphones.
So it's not just knowing what the AI decided, but why it decided that.
Exactly. Like if you're using an app to choose a restaurant, you might want to know why it's recommending a certain place.
Is it the food, the location, the ambiance?
Right. It's about peeling back the layers of how AI arrives at a decision.
I can see why that would be important to people. Knowing the why helps build trust, especially if AI is making bigger decisions about, like, loans or healthcare.
Exactly. And in fact, the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, already has a right to explanation built in, particularly for things with legal or financial stakes.
Makes sense. But I'm guessing not everyone's on board with this whole regulate all the AI idea.
Oh, definitely not. You've got people worried that forcing companies to reveal how their AI works is like giving away trade secrets.
Right, like spilling the secret sauce.
Exactly. IP theft, stifled innovation, those are all concerns that come up.
Especially since this whole AI field is still kind of new, right?
Exactly. It's still early days.
So where does this paper we're talking about fit into all of this?
So this paper basically says, hold on a second. Even if we put those concerns aside for a moment, there are these basic economic forces at play.
Okay.
They actually modeled it like a game.
A game. Tell me more.
So imagine two companies, right? Both of them have AI-powered products, and they're competing against each other.
Okay, so like Coke and Pepsi, but with algorithms instead of sugary drinks.
Exactly. And the paper calls this a duopoly, two major players. They say there are three key factors that drive these companies' decisions: how much they explain their AI, the actual quality of their AI, so how good it is at its job,
Right.
and of course the price of their products.
Of course, because at the end of the day, it's about us, the consumers, and what we're getting for our money.
Absolutely.
So not all consumers are the same, right?
Yeah.
Like some people probably don't care about the nitty-gritty details of how an AI works, as long as it gets the job done.
You're right. The model actually accounts for that some people are good with a just trust us AI, and others are like, nope, I need to know every single thing going on under the hood.
And some of us are somewhere in between, right?
Yeah.
Like it depends on what the AI is actually doing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting because the paper found that sometimes this idea that more transparency is always better, it kind of falls apart.
Okay, now you've got my attention. How so?
So let's say you're comparing car insurance quotes online. One company just gives you a number, no explanation. The other one breaks down every single factor that went into calculating that quote, like your driving record, the car model, even like local accident rates in your area. Which one feels more trustworthy?
Oh, for sure, the one that explains their reasoning. Even if the price is the same, the transparency makes a huge difference.
Right. You feel like you understand how they arrived at that number. You're not just trusting a black box. But here's the kicker. The paper found that forcing companies to reveal every single detail of their AI's decision-making process can sometimes lead to worse AI products overall.
Wait, hold on. More transparency equals worse AI. How does that make any sense?
It's all about competition. Let's say you've got one company in this duopoly, right? And they've poured tons of resources into developing super sophisticated AI. They're the front runners.
Okay, they're killing it in the AI game.
Exactly. But now imagine they're told, okay, you have to reveal exactly how your AI works, every single step. What happened?
Well, their competitors could just copy them, right? All that hard work, gone.
Exactly. Why bother pushing the boundaries, investing in cutting-edge research, if your competitors can just swoop in and replicate your success without any of the effort?
Right. So instead of having this incentive to create the best possible AI, there's this risk that companies will just stagnate.
Exactly. They might just match the quality of their weaker competitor because
Yeah.
the playing field is leveled.
And who loses out in that scenario? Us, the consumers.
Exactly. Instead of having these two companies constantly pushing each other to innovate and offer the best possible product.
You're stuck with the AI equivalent of, like, generic soda. It's fine. But it's not exactly drawing anyone's mind.
Exactly. And you don't even have the satisfaction of knowing why it's just okay. So the paper is saying it's not as straightforward as saying mandate full transparency and everyone wins.
Way more nuanced than that. It's like, how much transparency is enough transparency?
Right. And how do you even begin to measure something like that? So what the paper does is it starts to explore some potential solutions. Like instead of this all or nothing approach to regulation, they look at things like self-regulation, where industries set their own standards for XAI, or tiered approaches, where the level of transparency required depends on what the AI is actually being used for.
So, like, maybe a medical diagnosis AI needs to be more transparent than, say, an AI that recommends movies.
Exactly. It's about context. And what's interesting is the research found that these more flexible approaches, they often led to better outcomes for businesses and consumers. Companies maintain some of that competitive edge, innovation doesn't get stifled, and consumers still get a certain level of transparency that allows them to understand and trust these AI-powered decisions.
It's about finding that balance, which I imagine is really tricky. But, there's another layer to this whole XAI thing, right? It's not just about how much is explained.
Oh, absolutely.
It's also about how it's explained.
Yeah. You're hitting on a crucial point. It's not just about spitting out a bunch of data. It's about making that information understandable and, frankly, useful to the average person.
Right, like, I don't need to see the entire source code.
Exactly. And by how, I mean the specific methods used to generate those explanations. So, for example, imagine you're applying for a loan, right? And the AI says, denied.
Ugh, bummer.
One way to explain that decision would be to show you a rank list of the factors that most influence the AI, like your credit score, your income, your debt-to-income ratio.
Okay, that makes sense. But it still doesn't tell me what I need to change to get approved next time.
Exactly. And that's where a different XAI method called counterfactual explanations comes in.
Counter? What now?
Counterfactual explanations. Basically, instead of just showing you what is, counterfactuals tell you what could be. They might say something like, hey, if your credit score was 50 points higher or your income was $6 amount more, you'd be good to go.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just a no, it's a here's how to turn that no into a yes.
Yeah.
That feels way more empowering.
Exactly. It gives you actionable insights,
Yep.
like a path forward. And it highlights how different explanation methods serve different purposes. But this raises a whole other question. How do we make sure these explanations are fair? That someone with a limited credit history gets an explanation as useful as someone with decades of financial data.
Yeah, because the explanation itself shouldn't create a disadvantage, right?
Right. The researchers call this XAI fairness, and it's a crucial consideration. An explanation that makes sense to one person might be completely opaque to another. Imagine trying to explain a complex AI decision to someone who's never even used the internet. It's not just about making the AI transparent, it's about making that transparency accessible and meaningful to everyone.
It's like you're explaining it in a language they understand, both literally and figuratively.
Exactly. And that gets into some really interesting territory about like different levels of AI literacy and how you design explanations that work for a variety of audiences.
Right, because if only a select few can understand these explanations,
Yeah.
are we really achieving transparency?
Exactly. It's a really important consideration as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We went from more transparency is always good to, whoa, hold on, this is way more complicated.
It's definitely more nuanced than it appears at first glance, but that's the beauty of research like this, right? It challenges our assumptions and makes us really think critically about these issues.
Totally. So if I had to sum up a key takeaway from this paper, it's that simply mandating full XAI transparency might not be the answer.
I think that's a fair assessment. It's not just about whether to regulate, but how to regulate. And that how needs to be really carefully considered, taking into account different markets, different types of AI, the way we explain these systems.
Different levels of AI literacy among the general public.
It's a lot to juggle, but it's a conversation that's absolutely crucial to have as AI becomes more and more integrated into our daily lives.
Absolutely. And, it's not just policymakers and researchers who need to be part of this conversation. It's all of us.
100%. Because at the end of the day, AI impacts everyone.
It does. So for everyone listening, here's something to ponder. If you were designing XAI regulations, what would your top priorities be? How would you balance the need for transparency with the need to foster innovation and make sure AI benefits everyone?
Such a good question. Definitely something to think about.
It is, and that's where we'll leave it for today. This has been your deep dive into the fascinating and rapidly evolving world of explainable AI. Until next time.